Welcome to today's session on running successful Flint pilots. So today I'll be talking through some icebreaking news, but it's like I couldn't find any like new metrics on AI adoption in schools, but there's some like insights from our team that I wanted to share. And then we'll go through practices for structuring an initial pilot. And then I'll also touch on some continuing usage, since a lot of the people who RSVP to this seem to be like, they've piloted at Flint, but now they want to like introduce it to new departments, to new levels of the school as well. And then finally, we'll have some Shareout time and Q&A for the various Shareout teachers. Yeah. And that's kind of the agenda for today. As always, the recording will be available later and questions are welcome at any time. So feel free to just like raise your hand or interrupt me if something is confusing or if you have something to ask. But yeah, for the icebreaking news, I want to refer back to this survey from about a year ago now, from Atlas and Veracross jointly. They were at artificial intelligence in the K-12 space. And some of the statistics that they found were that a lot of schools were training teachers on AI, offering education for AI, but not really yet exploring like actual tools or like actually doing pilots. And a lot of them hadn't even like established a research group yet. But yeah, this was a year ago, so a lot could change in a year. And from our perspective, what we've seen is a shift in the questions that our sales teams get asked. So before 2024, 2023, we were getting a lot more questions about like, why should we even use AI? Like, what does AI tutoring even mean? But now these kinds of concepts seem more omnipresent and more understandable throughout a lot of the various like people that we talk to. And now a lot of the questions that our team gets at least is like, how much does Flint cost? And like, how does Flint differ from other platforms? Because the space is getting a bit more crowded, and also like, how do we try it? So yeah, I do think a lot of people are starting to actually dig into various AI tools and methodologies, and there's a lot of different ways that you can go into that. So that's what we'll talk about here today. Yeah, any thoughts on that? If anyone wants to add anything. I know Xander's on the call. Do you have anything to add to this list of questions?
No, Lulu, I think you hit the nail on the head. I talk to schools every single day, and the questions, like you said, have shifted from, why should we even use this tool to now, how should we be using this tool? In what ways, in what regards? How do we implement this in our team's daily workflow? How do we engage with students? So you're absolutely right there.
Yeah, nice. Yeah, Gisela, do you want to add it?
The other one, I think it's the cost. Schools are always trying to find a way to, get the best thing, but they don't necessarily are willing to pay for it. So the cost is another one. Yeah.
Yeah, I think from what I've seen too, the cost of AI tools is kind of skewed because a lot of the big companies are releasing tools for corporations and these big industries. And a lot of schools didn't have many options, honestly, at the beginning, and trying to apply that pricing model to a school environment is just like not good. I remember, I think it was during last year, people were saying, yeah, like ChatGPT is trying to charge every teacher and student like $12 a person. And that was just kind of crazy. So I think the industry is kind of like shaping to follow in education a bit more. But yeah, of course, like running AI is expensive, but hopefully it only gets cheaper from here. Yeah. Oh yeah, and Stephen said in the chat, it's such a fast moving pace of innovation. It's difficult to align on one product because 6 months from now, there may be something for our students. Totally true. It's a little bit of a, what if we select something now, like what does the future look like? Does that like tie us into something that isn't going to grow with us? And like I'm kind of touch on that too, but it is very difficult to make a decision when you're not really sure what the future is going to look like. Yeah. Cool. Yeah, so here I have some suggestions for the initial pilot structure. Yeah, I'll go through this, but I don't think this is like the way that you for sure have to do it. I think every school kind of differs based on like how many people that you have that are like super into technology versus like how many people that you have that are like a bit more concerned about AI. And so the structure might differ, but this is kind of the mean of what we've seen. Oh, but yeah, really quickly to level set in case there are people on this call who like don't really know what Flint is yet. Flint has chats and activities, and these are like our main offerings. The chats are kind of like ChatGPT. You get to use Flint on your own as a teacher versus a student. It kind of reacts differently for whoever's using it, and it has those educational guardrails in place so that, teachers can have these like helpful one-off conversations where Flint acts as a teaching assistant, but then students are kind of helped and they get more like tutoring assistance, and Flint acts as a responsible answer seeker rather than giver, as I like to call it. And then the activities is more so our bread and butter. This is where teachers get to design the experience of students, and all of the students can interact with an activity at once. They can have multiple conversations with it, but the teachers have designed what the specific interactions look like, what the outputs look like, what the persona of the AI is, what language it speaks in, all of that. So it's kind of like you're giving your teaching assistant a task to do with the students, and they can walk through that assignment with them. Anyways, sorry, to the juicy part. How to set up the pilot. So when I was asking Sohan about this, he said that what he's seen work best is inviting at least 5 to 6 teachers, especially those that are willing to explore, learn, and critique. And really here, if you can, diversity in subject, grade level, sentiment towards AI can be important, because you want to have those conversations of like, what does this look like for upper school versus lower school? What does this look like for math versus English? Yeah, but you do want teachers who will be engaged in this process with you. So sometimes focusing on some teachers rather than like your whole faculty can help a lot. And then getting them familiar with like, talking about this topic, talking to each other, and that can be really good. And then also establishing with this group some key things, a basic intro on what Flint is. I know we try and make it as easy as possible to use, but the time to value, as the sales world calls it, can be a little bit because you do still have to like go into Flint, you have to understand it, you have to set up an activity and then share it with the students. So we still think like having an intro of the pilot is important. And then I think establishing a route of open communication is also really important between the people within the pilot. So that could just be a group chat, or you can have a shared doc. That I've seen that too, where people throw in like ideas that they're trying and like comments on it. And then regular in-person meetings is probably also really important and suggested. Yeah, and then also I think dedicated time to play alongside any training that you might do for this group is also really important. This is what a lot of administrators have told me that they wish they had incorporated into the pilot, because teachers are already so busy. You might have some who have more time and also more energy to explore a new tool like this. But sometimes incorporating in your training, hey, let's talk about what it is for 30 minutes, and then for 30 minutes, let's just like play around and see what we can find. Yeah, Josela?
So my question is like, how much, once you find the 5 to 6 teachers who are willing to explore, and you find them from different, and you do that diversity group that you talk about, because I'm going to be now in an elementary level, and I guarantee you K through second grade, you probably won't get a lot of support there, but maybe the teachers in third, fourth, and fifth, especially fourth and fifth, because they'll be going to middle schools where they most likely will be using this.
Mm.
How much training do you give to the piloting group in order to be able to invite others and really explain it well, where they won't need to go to you to ask you questions?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that there's not a ton of training that needs to be done just for teachers to get started. We do have a guide that kind of walks through like, oh, this is what an activity is, and this is how you set it up. Um, but I think like there are like some things about Flint that also would be good to practice with them. So like, prompting it well, how to like troubleshoot when it's like not giving you the right output. Sometimes, I get asked questions and literally I like the teacher asked me a question and I'm just like, what if we put your exact question into Flint and then ask it to like why it's doing that or like how it can accommodate for something that you're like seeing that it's missing. So I think overall, like AI literacy is something that depending on your teachers, you might need to kind of work with them on. Um, and then beyond that, just like how to share it with students, how to view the results, but that should only take like 5 minutes, hopefully. Um, yeah, does that answer your question? Cool. Yeah. And then before I move on to the next slide, David said in the chat, one strategy that they're considering is using Flint for some of their in-house professional learning as you kick off the 25-26 school year. Yeah, we've also seen this happen a lot. I like do trainings for schools from time to time, and usually my schedule gets way busier in like August and in May when a lot of in-house trainings are happening. So yeah, for sure. I think that's also a very common way and productive way to train teachers on Flint since you've got everyone in the same room and that dedicated time. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And David said that they've also been creating activities that serve as knowledge bases for faculty, including handbooks, pedagogical frameworks, helps folks wrap their heads around AI. For sure. I've also seen, I worked with a teacher recently on an activity that actually just walks through what Flint does. So Flint will like one by one say like, okay, this is like how I can solve a math problem, and then this is how I can make a image. Yeah, I think that's a template in the library. Yeah, go ahead, David. Sorry, I was just reading your comments.
Oh, hi, thank you. I'm gonna speak without trying to embarrass myself. We've been using Flint for a few months now, and we haven't really called it a pilot, but it's more like a slow rollout. And I mean, my experience with this, as limited as it may or may not be, is when you have folks who are simply reluctant to adopt new technology, particularly AI, it's like it doesn't matter if it's Flint or not Flint or whatever. It's just a mindset, right? And so what we've tried to do is get it in front of people as much as possible in a way that it's helpful to them. And what we're finding is that when people start interacting with it, they start seeing like, wow, this is actually not that scary. And it can be incredibly powerful, and they start really seeing, oh, this can actually make my life a lot easier and allow me to do things that I always wondered if it would be possible. Now I actually do it, and so it sort of takes on a life of its own. And so I put some ideas that we've been doing that have been really helpful, like doing professional learning through a Flint activity, or now teachers don't actually have to find the PDF school handbook in Google Drive. They can literally just go to a Flint activity and type in, hey, what's the dress code for students? Boom. And it tells them in a fun and friendly way. And so then they're like, oh, Flint's pretty cool. Like, how else could I use it? And it's just sort of like this evolution. All that said, I mean, we definitely have teachers who are like, oh, I'm not going to touch that with a 10-foot pole. Like, AI overlords are coming after me, and that's it, And I mean, we shouldn't be surprised, I guess. But anyway, we're really excited about it. It's super flexible. Plus, it's a great LLM for all of our kids because it's secure. You can track their dialogue. It's financially untenable to purchase professional OpenAI licenses or Anthropic Claude licenses for a whole faculty. It's not. I mean, unless you have this crazy situation financially. So Flint has that all built in. So it's like kind of feels like a no-brainer. I don't work for Flint, by the way. I'm literally not making no benefits here, but I just want to be honest. So anyway, I hope I'm not over talking, but
You're good. You're good. Thank you, David. Yeah, and I think on top of that, like a lot of the conversations that we have with schools is like equity and access. Um, like you can just train teachers on like AI literacy and students on AI literacy, but if they're all accessing different models with different capabilities, like that's also something that we like advocate for at Flint. It's like, it's convenient, of course, to have everything in one place and like you can see all of the conversations, but also allowing all of your students at your schools, no matter like what their family background, to be able to access a powerful AI that can help them out. Yeah, that's what we work towards too. Yeah, and then Adam also said something in the chat that I want to highlight. Where he said that they're planning the start of the year with a small group of champion students as well as their faculty. Yeah, I've honestly, sometimes students show up at my campfire sessions and I'm like, wow, that's crazy. That's amazing. Like they're so excited about this technology as well and how they can use it productively. So yeah, I really like that idea. And also you're saying that when the faculty saw it, they also asked that it be expanded to grades 7 through 12 and have that happening in 6 weeks is really cool. Actually, I have a follow-up question on that. So for the expansion to grade 7 through 12, is that like the usage of Flint or is it the students that are in the champion group?
Hi, good morning. Great question. It was all students, grade 7 to 12, so 600, I think.
Nice. Awesome.
Teachers just saw it as useful, but useful with students. So if students didn't have access, then it wasn't useful, so we expanded.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Yeah. I have like a little bit of on my slide later, but we can skip it later and I'll just say it now. But I've seen some examples of where students will like they'll actually do the trainings for the teachers. It's kind of an interesting like flip of the roles. But since the students, they maybe have more time to like understand how to like create a prompt and like how to design an activity. And then when they're able to show the teachers like, hey, I did this in 5 minutes, the teachers are like, oh wait, this is a lot simpler than I expected, and it's not as scary as I thought originally. Yeah. Go ahead, James.
I just want to add one more thing. Good morning, everyone. That when you're looking to pick those like pilot teachers or whatever we're going to call them, I strongly recommend you pick the teachers that are like have like a tinker mindset, sort of, so to speak, right? So I found that sometimes who I consider to be like these are like our stronger teachers. They're very fixed in like, this is the way I want to do things. And I experienced some pushback where they were like, hey, I tried Flint, it didn't do what I wanted to do, so I'm never going back to it again, right? And so it really kind of started to tailor into getting into some people and just setting an expectation that you're going to have to iterate this thing 2 or 3 times before you get it right. Great news is once you get it right this year, then that's the one you're using next year and the year after. So it's sort of like an investing in yourself conversation. But I would just say that, like, think about it that way, because you will get the teachers who are disappointed that they downloaded a template and that template that somebody in South Carolina made doesn't work perfectly for the student in Illinois. And they're going to be like, it's not what I wanted, right? And you just need somebody who's willing to say like, okay, cool, this was a template, but I have to tweak it. And like, this was my first round with the students, and now I'm going to tweak it again, and now I'm going to tweak it again. So if you can really identify who those types of thinkers are in your building, you're going to have a lot more success with a pilot.
For sure, for sure. And sometimes those thinkers come from like unexpected places, I think. Some of the people who like are most passionate about Flint, they're just like, yeah, I teach 3rd grade. I can only use it so much with my 3rd graders, but I'm so excited about it that I'm like working with other teachers and helping them figure out how to use it. Or sometimes like the student support teachers also, they're like not necessarily teaching the class, but they need to work with that teacher to teach the class, to help the students who are struggling more. And they also end up helping the teacher create activities for like the whole class to use, not just the students who come to them for support. So yeah, lean on your teachers who are really the tinkerers, as you say, James. Yeah, that's very good advice. Yeah. Okay, so yes, someone is asking about outcomes. I think that's like 2 slides from now. Oh, Joshua, did you want to really quickly say something?
Sorry. Hello, everyone. Sorry, I came late, but I'm interested in the topic. What I want to understand is, are we limiting how how much is the limit of the are we use can we use Flint? Like from most of the discussions I've had, I also talked to James earlier, like some days ago, and he was like, he said he'd get back to me on some stuff. But what I want to know is, are we the Flint app? Can we use it for more than just from K5s to K12s? Can we actually extend it more than that? Because I think where I'm coming from this background is because I stay in a third world country, and in my country, it's not only do how do I put it now? People like lecturers also have this kind of problems, if you understand what I mean. So I think they will also need literal AI literal courses for them. So can more than teachers, okay, can we get if we're not getting some primary school teachers to do something like this, can we also include lecturers of higher institutions too?
Yeah, yeah. I mean, we don't really restrict who can use Flint. I will say that we like haven't really partnered with universities directly yet, though we are open to it. So if there are lecturers who are interested in using Flint, I know there have been like a couple who have tried it, but we haven't like gone through the red tape of like actually partnering with a university. Um, yeah, that could totally work. I think also like beyond like just using it with the students, teachers using Flint for themselves is also something that has been really popular as well. Originally, we just had activities in Flint, but then when we launched the chats so that teachers could, use it for their own productivity, the usage really skyrocketed. So I think that plus like also a lot of administrators are asking me, how can I use Flint for like operations in school? Like, how can we use it for a cool example was like interviewing students who might want to join our institution or like interviewing parents. So like helping with the admissions process. But then also like, yeah, handbook stuff, how to communicate with parents too. Like a lot of that can also be done. So I think the world is your oyster. And yeah, just any if you need any specific support from our team for that, just let us know. Yeah. Um, but yes, so uh, good sidetracks from the slides. The next thing that I wanted to talk about was what should goals for the pilot be? So earlier we were talking like, invite 5 to 6 teachers. Those are like the tinkerers, the people who are like willing to try it out and really test its limits. But then I think like you'll know that like your pilots are going well and that your teachers are doing well if you see like 2 to 3 teachers using it consistently. So really not a lot. But from what we've seen here, like usually those first couple teachers are really critical for expanding the usage of Flint. And also once those like 2 to 3 teachers get like 2-ish lessons in using it with students, that can really give you some good signals of whether or not this is like going to be useful to your kids. Yeah, and then other goals here might vary based on like how you approach your AI integration. So some schools like want to set a policy and then want to find a tool to fit that policy. But we've also worked with schools that, don't have a policy yet and they're trying to figure it out and they use Flint as a means to figure that out. So I think there's also like broader goals at your institution for like, how do we want to allow usage of AI? What does acceptable use look like for us? What sorts of how integrated do we want it to be in like the classroom? Do we want teachers to be just using this for like homework or just in class stuff? So there might be other goals in your broader AI plan that I think you should consider that might fit into like the pilot really well as well, if that makes sense. Yeah, and then I just put like a little note here. Some pilots have even made activities for teachers to use. if you're someone who's like finding a lot of resistance or a lot of hesitancy to try something out, like the teachers aren't sure if they want to invest time in something that they're not sure if it will even work or be good for the students. We've seen some pilot leaders actually make the activities for the teachers, just kind of be like, hey, give me your lesson plan for next week and I'll see if I can make something. And then that, or even like find a template for it too, and like lowering that time to value again, like making it so that the teachers can immediately use something and see the value in it can also be really helpful. Yeah, go ahead, Gisela.
We need to be careful with that because there are certain teachers that would take advantage of that and say, hey, could you do that for me again? Rather than say, sit down and show me how you did that. So just know your audience.
Very true, very true. Yeah, for sure. Okay. Sorry, just catching up on the chat. Okay. I guess, Stephen, do you want me to answer the other tools that operate at the space piece, or do you want to hear from everyone else? Maybe we can cover it in the chat.
Hey, sorry about that. Yeah, I realize it's counterintuitive to ask a vendor like, hey, so what are your best competitors and which ones of them are better than you? That's not really what I meant to say. Just like, I know that a part of our process as we're looking at piloting any of these tools, I'm going to look for the other tools that are in that space. And so I wanted to actually gauge your insight for like, what are the best apples to apples kind of tools to look at?
Yeah. I actually think Xander can speak to that a bit more since he's like working more on the sales sides of things. Yeah.
Totally. So, Stephen, I did just drop our comparison page on our website. You can go and compare Flint stack by stack for all these other edtech tools that are available on the market. Some ones worth mentioning are like Conmigo. So if you guys are a Khan Academy affiliated school, if you guys pay for premium Khan Academy access, that is a great tool to look into. Obviously Flint, because that's our core product in our company and what we do. Magic School is another one that's really popular. Toddle, if you're using Toddle as your LMS, they offer an AI function. I would go check them out as well. And of course, ChatGPT EDU. They're definitely the most premium and most expensive. They can range anywhere between $15 to $25 per person, so quite pricey, but that's also one we're checking out as well.
Yeah. Thanks
very much for that. I appreciate it.
Thank you both. Okay. Yeah, so now I know someone asked about this earlier, but like metrics to look at. And honestly, it's usually very anecdotal at the very beginning stages of a pilot. So like I've even like asked for metrics from various schools and they're just like, we don't really know. It's like a couple teachers have been using it. Like, how do you actually get numbers from that? So I think that's why like at the very beginning of the pilot, it's really important to be like checking in with your teachers and talking to them about how they feel Flint has changed their instruction, if they see like a lot of opportunity in this. And then over time, as you get more usage, you can look at the workspace analytics to kind of look at that usage over time. And I think something that's important to look at there is the proportion of like how many chats are being had and how many activities are being made. Because at some schools I see like, a lot of people are chatting with Flint, both teachers and students, and they might be using it for various kinds of things. But then the activity count might be kind of low. So then I think that's where like you either need to check in and see like, okay, are people kind of just using this as like a replacement for ChatGPT, which like can be a use case for Flint, but I think they might be missing out on a lot of the value of how the tutoring in Flint can look and how they can actually create new experiences for their students. And hopefully it's not just like replacing, like planning that they have to do or like students' questions that they would ask their teachers, and more so like creating those new interactions and really giving visibility to student thinking. So that's when I would like see with the teachers if the problem is that they didn't find activities useful or if they just like don't know how to build them yet. Yeah. And then I think also that the pilot is going really well when you start seeing word of mouth. So when like if you did have like a restricted pilot and like if you start having teachers come to you like, hey, someone told me about this, like can I also get in on this. And I think the key is to like lean into that enthusiasm, help amplify their voice and excitement around Flint. And sorry, just got a call. And then make sure that those initially excited teachers feel like they're contributing to this conversation. So that is also really good and should be promoted. Yeah. Any questions about the pilots? Yeah, go ahead, Joseph.
Okay, one of the situations I found myself in as a world language teacher was that there were certain apps that I was able to, prior to COVID and the schools closing, that I was able to create a teacher account, which was something that I could afford, and use it with my students in the classroom. When COVID ended, the companies turned around and said, unless you have a school account, you cannot use our app. And so that was discouraging because quizzes was a very good thing to use and it was getting better every time, but they gave me nothing. Edpuzzle, thank God, still allows me to have a teacher account, which I pay with my own money. And I don't mind doing that. I know some teachers complain about it, but I'm okay with it because it helps my students. And I saw in your webpage that, schools are not willing to pay administrators if you only have 3 or 4 teachers who are using it out of whatever many teachers they have in the school. I think that's a problem that where I was, they're like, oh my God, we started this and very few teachers are willing to do this. They're going to try it now for a second time and they're going to pay for it. But like any thought of maybe giving teachers like me, which are a minority, I know, who are willing to pay so that they can increase the amount of students that could use it. I know you have the free version, but it gives me limitations.
That is a good question. I don't know if Xander has any thoughts about this. I don't know if you talked to Sohan about it.
It's a great idea, and it's something that, maybe we can look into a little bit more. Basically, we make the core product free because we want to incentivize teachers to try and use it. We don't want to put any roadblocks in terms of like, oh, like you can use it, but you got to pay for it, which, as you called out, right, a lot of these companies are trying to do. And we think that that's just not the direction that an edtech company and an edtech tool should take. So potentially down the road, as we continue to grow as a company, maybe there's an option for a 2 to 3 to 5 teacher package where everyone can be in the same workspace. But right now, there's nothing stopping you from going to your teachers that do want to use the tool and just have them all create their own free accounts. You guys can make your activities public. So we have the public library in Flint, where then you guys can collaborate and share activities that way.
And as a follow-up question, I know
Sure.
that sometimes the private schools here and independent schools sometimes buy things together in bulk. If I
Yes.
try to connect my current school with the one that I was in, it's like, hey, can we do this together in order to lower the cost? Would that be another thing to do?
Definitely not opposed. Maybe we can chat offline about that. Happy to have a discussion there.
Great. Yeah. Thank you, Xander. Yeah, and then Adam was asking in the chat, would I recommend the analytics chat to generate usage distribution reports, metrics by staff, student grades, subjects, types of activities? Yeah, you definitely can do that. And also something that we added recently was sort of a distribution report like you were saying. So here, yeah, this is the chat if you all haven't seen it yet. But like, yeah, I would say like looking at this chart, seeing like if usage is increasing over time, especially, and then like at some point if it's being consistent. And then yeah, you can see like the top activity creators within our team. Of course, it's like a bit skewed, but for this, then you can like connect with those teachers who are using it the most, and then you can also see like what sorts of activities are being created. And this part is new, where Flint will automatically categorize the activities by subject, and then you can kind of see which departments are using it most. Yeah, go ahead, Xander.
Yeah, so Lulu, you bring up a good point here. So this pie chart is specifically useful for if you're running a pilot right now, and maybe you have, let's say it's skewed to one department. So let's say that world language is hypothetically 50% of usage. And then looking at this graph, let's say that, I don't know, math is 5% of usage. You could then go to your world language teacher or chair and be like, hey, like, what are you doing that's working so well? And how do I get math and all these other departments to buy in? That's a great way to kind of telephone internally with your coworkers to try and encourage adoption, not just in one particular department if you're struggling to get by it.
Mm-hmm. Yes, exactly. And then, yeah, just really quickly touch on it. On the left-hand side, you can also ask additional questions to Flint. It will have like, it can dig into some of the context of like all of the activities and like what's being used. We're still working on making it even better, so stay tuned for updates there too. Yeah. Awesome. Okay, so in the next section, I did want to talk a little bit about like encouraging that continuing usage once like you have like a couple teachers who are like interested in Flint, or once you have like, you know, introduced Flint to your whole faculty. How do you introduce it to the rest of the school? And I think the communication piece is still key. So checking in with teachers often, like keeping Flint in mind when they bring up related pain points too. I hear this story a lot of like, yeah, my teacher came to me with like this one question, but I realized that Flint could just do it for them, or like Flint could help them with it. And like the teachers are introduced to Flint with like a very set mindset, you know, they're like, oh, this is like for creating practice activities. And they might not be thinking about like the breadth of places in their work life where it can be helpful. So I think just like planting those seeds over time really helps. And then also I've seen something that has been really successful is like collaborating with directly or even pairing teachers up to work on new applications of Flint too. So whether it's like, you know, like the students are doing a school play and like you want to help those students um, practice their lines, then like, you know, the theater teacher and then also like any of the homeroom teachers, they could work together on that if the theater teacher hasn't touched Flint yet and like doesn't know. So kind of like you're outsourcing the training to those teachers that you've found have been like the people who are really interested in getting to know Flint and like how it works. Yeah, just like encouraging them to share and like really increasing that word of mouth. And then a second thing that I know a lot of teachers have said that has been really important for them is that feeling of support from their administrators, from their IT teams, from our team as well. So helping them work through any issues, like collaborating to use AI is super fundamental, and teachers might need that sort of coaching. That has been really integral in a lot of the schools that have done really well with Flint, I'd say. And then also sharing their concerns or anything like that with our team, I think can also help your school a lot, because from what I've seen, like teachers who, you know, request something and then they're like, oh shoot, that got updated in the product like a couple weeks later or a month later. That can also be like really good for increasing their confidence in it. And that's also like what our team wants to do. We want to like update the product to help teachers. And I think from what I've seen, our team works pretty fast. So that can also help, you know, increase that buy-in. And then the last one here is expanding the perceptions of how Flint can be used. So we've kind of touched on this, but, you know, continuously exploring what new use cases for AI you see. And then I've linked a couple things here. So we do have like our What's New page. Here you can see like over time how AI has updated. I know for a lot of trainings that I run like recently, some of the schools that have been using Flint over time, they're just like, hey, can you just like cover the updates from this semester, because I know our teachers have not had time to look at it. So doing that with them and like making sure you're showing them like, hey, this is like an updating tool, and like there might be new things that before didn't work out that you could maybe try now. Yeah, and subtle plug, encouraging the teachers to join these sorts of sessions and also join our community and really connect with educators beyond their school can help. because yeah, maybe there is like one teacher in the English department who wants to use Flint, but they're getting a lot of pushback from like their colleagues. Then, exploring it on your own when like you already have this, you're surrounded by this mindset of it might not work. If you can like help those teachers to connect with other people who are excited about how Flint will work and how it can impact students, can also be really helpful. Yeah. Okay. And then let's see. All right, so I just listed some like ideas here, but these are like things that I've heard various pilot groups do. I do think like recurring meetings is pretty important. So some of the groups have used the lunch period to be able to do that, and they've called them lunch and learns, and they might theme it around subjects or theme it around like specific use cases for Flint, but then just allowing teachers to drop in and like have that dedicated time to play around with it has been really important. And then of course you can encourage talking about Flint in department meetings. Yeah, and then that's like a great place for individual teachers to share about like what they've tried and like what they're interested in trying, and then that might also foster collaboration. Um, AI literacy training for both teachers and students. We offer some courses on our website, but I think in general, like this is like a trend that I saw from this one survey where they asked US adults who, just general US adults, and then US adults who work in AI, like what their outlook on AI is. And it was like 50 something percent of adults who work in AI thought it was really positive. And then, it was like basically opposite for just the general population. So I do think like there might be some correlation there rather than causation, but I do think also that once people understand AI more and understand like how it's limited and how it can be helpful, that can really increase like their outlook on it and their willingness to use it. Yeah, and then yeah, training some students like we talked about earlier on creating activities or like having them help train the teachers even, really getting their say in all of this is also really important. I've seen some of our like schools with the highest usage, they have like student AI committees or like AI clubs even. So that can also be really good to encourage. And then awards for teachers using for the most also. It is my job to set up a merch store soon, and of course we'd want to like provide discounts to pilot leaders and everything so that you can get teachers excited that way as well. Yeah. And like, I think the general takeaway from all of this is that patience and persistence is kind of important here. I remember a couple campfires ago, I think we were talking about this topic, and it's really unfortunately not going to happen overnight. And like meaningfully integrating AI has a lot of moving parts and a lot of considerations to make. Yeah, like how do you increase teacher literacy, student literacy? What sort of policy do you want to set? What are new ways to use this in a classroom that has been teaching the same textbook for 20 years? Like, how do you really bring in such a new and transformative technology into pedagogy? So there's a lot there, and it will take some time. So I think like being patient with the teachers and like if it's not working out, just trying something else out can be really important. Every school is kind of different. Every group of teachers is kind of different. So yeah, I do not envy you all's roles, honestly, but our team is here to support, and we hope that we can help you out in any way we can. But yeah, I would just say like ask yourself if you are like still considering Flint versus like a different tool or a different approach. Does Flint offer you a means to fully explore the possibilities of AI and what you currently want to do? And then also, do you think it will grow with you and allow you as a school to grow? Yeah, I don't think there's a product out there that is a perfect fit for education yet. I think, of course, we're trying to build towards that. And also, like, as the technology changes, all of that will change. As people learn new ways of interacting with AI, everything will change again. So I think the way that you can kind of be future thinking about it is like, how can you, what sort of tool will allow you to explore rather than hinder you from being able to see like the different options that might lie in the future. Yeah, Cool. I don't know if anyone has anything to add to that. I think the next section is the share out. So. Cool. Awesome. Okay. So for the share out, I invited a bunch of teachers, but most of them had like different scheduling conflicts. I do think Sonia said that she could make it, but maybe something came up. Yeah, I don't see her in the meeting, but I'll get her thoughts on it later. I did gather some thoughts from people async. So Gabe from STS, I was asking him like, how did they set up their pilot and what did that look like for them? So yeah, they made the pilot as a subset of like the AI exploration efforts that they were already doing. They're affectionately coined AI Genius Team. And yeah, leadership of the Flint AI team was a collaboration between academics and IT. And then they initially just like had a small team. So like we were saying, like the 5 to 6 teachers that you might initially invite. But then from what they saw, like this team doubled in size throughout the pilot because more teachers were getting interested in it and they wanted to have a part in exploring Flint at their school. And yeah, and they kind of structured it like a research question. And I think like this sort of mentality around Flint, like structuring it as research or as an experiment, has been really popular from what I've seen at least. And so their question was, to what extent can implementing AI tutoring systems into our school improve student performance through formative learning experiences? And he shared this whole like research findings document with me as well. This will be linked in the slides for you all to look through if you would like. But yeah, like they did like a SWOT analysis and like the process for teachers to give feedback. They looked at all of those things. So this was really cool to see and how in depth it was as well. And then I also asked all of these people like what went well, what would they do differently? So he said that he liked the collaboration between academics and IT, and they liked that they started small because that is like a lot easier to manage, and then you can check in with everyone more individually. Giving teachers the space to explore. So, you know, like not really saying like, oh, I want you to use it for like this specific use case, but, you know, having them explore the different ways. I think their mentality of approaching it as a research question was really helpful here, and then sharing it with their colleagues. Yeah, framing it as a pilot with action research, and then comparing the teacher and peer feedback to Flint AI activity feedback. So they were looking at like, how does Flint like match their expectations and how they would give feedback to students? What they found was that it did, so that's great. But yeah, so that for them was like a good selling point for that Flint would like actually provide value at their school. Yeah, and then some of the things that they would do differently. So like ensuring that the pilot team has representation from each division or department. Yeah, I think they like mostly did English and science and history. But yeah, so the specific setup for the activities in Flint varied by grade level, subject, and learning outcome. He was saying that that might be a better like full evaluation. And then yeah, setting aside collaborative time to meet as a team and as a part of a school in the professional development plan. So like I was touching on earlier, that time to like communicate and then also play around with it. He thinks that also could have made the pilot a bit better. Yeah, and then one more question from Gabe was what actually got teachers' attention and caused them to start exploring? Like, what was that aha moment for everyone? And he said it really just took like one teacher exploring using Flint in their class, and then their excitement over the power led to other teachers joining and starting to explore. So like, it really just takes like 1 to 2 teachers who are really excited about Flint and want to like share about it. So yeah, I would just say like that is the strongest indicator of success. Yeah, to say that.
So one of the things, and I think I mentioned this at a different meeting with Flint. If the students are using a regular computer, I think kids and even teachers are more willing to do the updating of the computer because they know that the computer is going to slow down if it doesn't. For some reason, they don't do that with their phones as often or even their iPads. So if your school is an iPad, not Chrome, but an iPad school where the students use the iPad, just make sure that the teachers in the pilot understand that they need to tell their students update, update before you go to Flint, because if you don't update, then it won't work. And that's the one thing that got the teachers who never used it in the second semester when I was like so excited about it, like, well, it didn't work. And then they walked away and I'm like, but wait, I have a solution for that. And I just, you know what? You don't have to use it. It's fine. It's working for me. But then other teachers came like, why didn't it work? I'm like, you need to tell them to update. And then the students, when they clicked on update, it's like, oh, it's going to take 20 hours. It didn't. But, you know, that lets you know how long it has been since the last time they updated. So just keep that in mind. Remind the teachers updating computers. The iPad is a computer. You need to do that.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. There are other things beyond Flint itself that can really impact the pilot. So yeah, that's really important to note as well. Yeah. Yeah. Cool. And then I did have Sydney and Sarah from Overroy did send me this video. I was going to use this for next week's as well, because they're located in India. But I do think that like what they were saying was really helpful, so I will play it for you all as well. Let me know if you can't hear it, by the way.
So we started with the most keen teacher, and he was in the INS department, Individuals and Societies, and he got his whole department on board. And this was a way that got all of the students in the school, at least in the secondary school, to have some experience with Flint, even at the trial stage. And so when we started with the paid version and we started doing training, pretty much all the students already had a little bit of exposure just because of that one department, which, you know, obviously had courses from 6 through 12. So from that point, then we did a training with teachers who were interested, and some of them had started to hear about it. And so Lang and Lit, language acquisition, math, they seem to be the next tier of teachers who got really on board. The other thing that really helped our use was that I would make activities for them. So in the training, the goal was to walk away with an activity already made, but still they felt a little bit reluctant. And so I would meet with them and kind of help them make things, or I would just make things for them based on what I knew they were going to be doing in their unit. So that really removed some barriers for them because they felt like they could just jump in. Sydney can talk a little bit about what went well and what could have been better.
Yeah, so what went well was that the teachers had the freedom to use and encourage them to play with Flint, to really experiment with it, to see how it worked for them. Teachers got their colleagues on board. Once the teacher had an aha moment, that's when the whole department came in. We had a lot of encouragement from the school to use it. Our approach to AI was very forward-thinking, and we rolled that down to making sure teachers could use it and not be afraid to use it. I guess what could have been better, we wish we started earlier. That would have been amazing. I know there was a bit of a race to get this out, you know, as soon as, you know, 2022, but, you know, we got it out in the end. But I mean, yeah, the more early adoption, we would have had even more time to learn and how to apply it. We have done training sessions, but it's more been like opt-in sessions for teachers. We really want next year, perhaps for our orientation onboarding, to have mandatory training sessions around AI and how to use AI, because still we'll have teachers coming up and asking questions around a good AI use. So making sure it's throughout.
And specifically Flint.
Yes, yeah. Exactly. We're also looking at introducing more AI literacy lessons. We did a level 1 course already with Flint, which is great, help, really good AI literacy course. So making sure our teachers have some basic fundamentals around AI literacy, and then rolling that out to our students, so our students have also some of the fundamental skills around AI literacy as well. I think, yeah, there's still some more work that's needed to integrate Flint more fully, not just as a tool you might pick up later on, but into the learning objectives, into the units themselves. So it's there as not just
an AI when you use it, but as part of that learning process. I think so. You do an activity away from the device perhaps, and then you might come in with the ideas, the research, and then refine that or use Flint to sort of personalize your learning.
We're starting to see this with the long-term activities like extended essay and personal project, where we have different activities that help them through the process, but they need to do quite a bit outside of Flint as well. So I'm liking that blend of a little bit of Flint, a little bit of reflection, a little bit of conversation, talk to the teacher, back to Flint. So that I hope will be a big part of our training next year when we look at how to design for this kind of AI use. So anyway, I think we are huge fans, and best of luck with your pilots.
Yeah, I thought their outro was really cute. But yeah, so like they kind of touched on like how they focused on one department first. That's also an option. Like I know earlier I said like you can have a very diverse group. I just think like that gives you more like options to strike a chord. Like maybe the world language teachers at your school would be really excited about Flint, but like math might not be. So like picking one department can maybe work if you know that like that department is filled with like teachers who might tinker, like we were talking about earlier. But yeah, they picked one department and it also worked out well for them, and they expanded to more departments after that. And then I think one other thing that I wanted to highlight that they said was the support from their school about using Flint and like encouraging teachers to use Flint. Because I do think the default is still that there's like that AI uses kind of murky waters, like what is acceptable, what is good for students, like still not sure. So either like, or like expressing that there is support for teachers to do that exploration, and that this is research that we're like all a part of together, and like we want to test the limits of it. That can be really important. Okay, I know we have 2 minutes left, so I will really quickly wrap up in the time. Oop. In the slides, which we'll get after this meeting, are the additional resources that might be helpful for rolling out Flint. So like the AI policy library that we have with a bunch of different examples of AI policies. We also had a Campfire on that. So like both the resource and the recording are there. The courses for students and teacher AI literacy. And then we have some resources for communicating with parents about AI. And then there's additional use cases on our website too, in case you're curious about how other schools have rolled it out. Those are very comprehensive. So if you want to read through those, that can also maybe glean some insights. But yeah, next week I'll be running this session again, but with more of a Asia and Oceania focus, with like new, like it's at a different time basically. But we'll also talk about more like rolling out Flint from the mindset of like a international school. And then yeah, the week after that, the plan is to do one for summer work and reading, how you can support students in that, and kind of like make sure that they're doing it, but also like make sure that they're not like alone and like not understanding what they're practicing over the summer there. Yeah, and then all recordings will be posted on our website here, though I will email it out once it's available to everyone who registered too, so no need for you all on the call here at least to check. And then yeah, final QR codes are Campfire calendar for upcoming events, and then also the new Flint community, which I highly recommend that you and your teachers both join. Yeah, that was everything, ending just on time. Thank you, everyone.